I very rarely watch live football on TV these days. Normally, if I can't make a game, obviously, I'd watch West Ham United. But I hardly ever watch live football matches that involve other teams other than West Ham. Um, and one of the reasons why is because over the years, I've gotten quite bored and frustrated with the sort of biased punditry that goes on with, the various TV companies that dish out live football. And it's it's very rare, therefore, that I would ever bother to listen to Jamie Carragher's opinions on West Ham United. As we often find, they're usually biased against us and more or less in favour of the opposition that we're playing against, or to be more specific, in favour of the so-called Big Six, or even to be more specific than that, in favour of his beloved Liverpool. You see, when on the rare occasion we might get a positive result against Liverpool, it's not because West Ham United played well. It's because Liverpool had players missing or they didn't play well. They weren't on they weren't at it today, etc. Never a lot of praise for West Ham. And then on most occasions, when we lose against Liverpool, it's obviously always about the superiority of Liverpool rather than West Ham United having played poorly. So I don't bother. And so it came as a bit of a surprise when I was, a surprise to me. I was told, I was asked, have I seen the comments made by Jamie Carragher in the Monday night show against Brentford after the game? And I said, no, I hadn't. And it was suggested I go and listen to some of the comments that Carragher had made. And when I did watch it, I must admit, I was quite pleasantly surprised. Here was someone who was looking at West Ham United, the whole Moyes out issue, and looking at West Ham United and looking at the situation and understanding things from both sides of the fence. Things that both Moyes in and Moyes out contingents could all more or less agree on. And Carragher didn't have to resort to angry words or shouting or being abusive, etc. He simply looked at the situation and understood both sides and offered a very balanced analysis of what he saw was going on at this moment in time. I was shocked, I was surprised, but I'm actually glad I listened to it. And here are some of the things that Jamie Carragher said. First, he talked about David Moyes, and he said, for me, David Moyes is a top Premier League manager. I think he's proven that now. He's proven that now at two clubs. He's taken Everton and West Ham, two clubs who feel that maybe should be in a position where they're regularly challenging for Europe. And I think he's absolutely correct in what he said. Whatever you may think, Moyes took an Everton team who at the time were fighting relegation, and he turned them into a regular top half of the table football club. I think he only finished in the bottom half of the league once during his tenure at Everton, and this was all on very limited resources. And he's done exactly the same at West Ham United. Okay, our resources are much greater than that of Everton's at the time. But whilst we may not be hitting the level of expectation that was promised to us by the board, Champions League football at a top-class stadium and all that sort of stuff, David Moyes has come closest after many failed attempts from other managers, Pellegrini, Bilic, etc., etc. He's come closest for delivering regular European football for 3 seasons in a row at West Ham United. Can't be denied. Both the Moyes out and the Moyes in contingent would all agree with that. And he went on to say that this proves that what David Moyes' skill set is. He takes big football clubs who feel that they should be higher in the table from the bottom half of the table into European places. So I think that's a great job he's done. And again, no one can deny what he said. It's fact, it's true, it's accurate, and it's correct. And rather than looking over our shoulders at West Ham, worrying as we have done over the years, worrying where we might get enough points in order to stay in the Premier League, we're now looking up and wondering how we're going to get enough points to qualify for Europe yet again. Granted, last season was the exception to the rule, but it doesn't look like we're going to be in any danger dropping down into anywhere near the relegation zone this season. And you look at the last 4 years, finishing 6th and 7th, being in Europe has proven that that's the case. Now, what Carragher also pointed out, which was rather pleasing, is that he does see West Ham United as being a big club. And he didn't sort of suggest for any moment that we're a bit disillusioned and we shouldn't be thinking about Europe. He actually sort of said, he suggested that perhaps West Ham United are the sort of club that should be striving to finish in a European place on a regular basis. Now, look, all of that so far will appeal to the David Moyes in brigade, won't it? You know, that they'll believe that David Moyes is still the right man to lead West Ham United into next season and beyond that. But what Carragher said next not only will appease the Moyes out corner, but again, many fans, or not many fans, should I say, who support Moyes would be able to argue with. And this is what he went on to say. I think it's the style of football, which is the problem. And I totally get where West Ham supporters are coming from, because I feel now that the style of football David Moyes plays at West Ham is almost moving out of football. We've seen better manner. And what he means by that is it's becoming old fashioned to play the style that we're currently playing under David Moyes. And he went on to say, we've seen better managers than David Moyes lose their jobs over this style of football. Managers who have won trophies like Jose Mourinho, Antonio Conte, Rafa Benitez, they're almost like the top managers of this style of football. And of course, when he talks about this style of football, he's obviously alluding to, you know, park the bus, counter-attacking football, etc., etc. That's the style of football he's suggesting that is almost going out of fashion in a way. I don't know. Maybe in the Premier League he's correct. I would argue that if you look at things like maybe the Italian league, where defending is an art form, they might disagree with that. But certainly for the Premier League, I agree with him. And then he went on to say again about the fans. He said, the reason I accept and understand and totally with the West Ham supporters' frustration is I think the football we're watching now in the Premier League, the only way a supporter accepts this style of football, who sit back, play on the counter-attack, wait for set pieces, is a team that's fighting relegation. And he carried on. He said, West Ham United are not a team right now who should be thinking about fighting relegation, especially after such a large investment in the squad. And he's right. He's absolutely yet again correct. You know, it is normal to actually see a team that's fighting for survival in the Premier League to play that style of football. The irony is, you look at some of the teams at the bottom of the league at the moment, some of them are trying to fight their way out of relegation by playing football, by going on the attack. Because as many people say, you know, the best form of defense is attack. You know, you've got more chance of scoring if you try and attack than you have of trying not to concede goals. And I think that's where the frustration lies. And Carragher has hit that the nail on the head. Now, the next part of what Carragher said is an appeal to the West Ham fans. And for me personally, this is why I myself have found it incredibly difficult to become a staunch Moyes out advocate. You know me, I've said it many times before. I was very much Moyes in. Even though we were struggling last season, I tried to see the bigger picture. I'm not saying I was right, you know, but I was very much Moyes in. And I got to the stage this time last year, around about January of last year, when we were struggling, that I suggested maybe we ought to think about an alternative to David Moyes. But we saw out the season, and when the season ended and we finished on a high by winning the trophy, etc., I said, right, restart button, let's go again. And even though we've done reasonably well and we're still in Europe, we're back up to 8th, etc., it did get to a point again around about January, especially when we lost or we hadn't won a game for 8 games. I started to think to myself, what's David Moyes doing? You know, the January transfer window kind of got to me. You know, I was hoping and praying that we weren't going to do the same thing as we did 2 seasons ago or 2 January transfer windows ago, where we didn't buy any players. All right, we got a player in Calvin Phillips, but this time we let too many players go. So we're sort of in the same position as we were two seasons ago. And I got a little bit frustrated, and I started to think to myself, maybe it is time to look at an alternative. But Carragher went on to say, you know, he did an appeal to the West Ham fans, and he said, I want to start with the banner that was held up a few weeks ago. I think that's bang out of order, the banner. This is a guy who's given you the best night you've ever had in your footballing life for 43 years and that European night. The trips that they've been on, they're still in Europe, by the way, West Ham United. There's some of the greatest nights West Ham fans will have. And it's not just about the football, it's about going away with your mates, the trips, the memories, the things that you got up to, brilliant nights. And that is why, for me, I've been really reluctant to become staunch Moyes out, because I lived those nights, with my mates. We went away, we had absolute fun. Some of the best memories that I will have as a football fan. And he went on to say, as I said, that night they had in Prague, the best night since 1980. Who knows how long it will be until they win another trophy? Now, he wasn't being facetious or like, look at you, who do you think you are? He was being factual. The banner, let's forget about that, because David Moyes deserves a lot more respect than that. But for me, I totally get where the fans are coming from. And this is where he managed to balance out what he just said. They want to go to the game and think we're going to be on the front foot. After all, we've got Lucas Paqueta, we've got Mohamed Kudus. Why are we sitting back? Why are we accepting not even the biggest teams in the world coming to West Ham and dominating like Brighton or other teams that have come up at different times? So he gets it. He totally understands it. We do have a very talented squad. Why should we be playing the same way against the likes of Brighton, Nottingham Forest, etc., in the way that we play against Man City and Liverpool and so on? And finally, after all that, Carragher got to the crux of what he believes should happen next. And I won't lie, I get it. And I've come round, as I said a moment ago, I've come round to more or less the same opinion. And this is what Carragher finished off with. He said, I actually think it's better for all parties if they part ways. I've said David Moyes has done a brilliant job there, but at the end of the season, for me, I think it's if there's unrest in the crowd and Moyes is not sure whether the crowd is with him, you don't need to be getting into a new season around about October and it starts to become toxic again. And that's exactly where it's gotten to this season, where things started off well, but it started slowly to become toxic again. He went on to say, David Moyes deserves better than that. He's done a brilliant job at West Ham, but the time has come for David Moyes to move on in the summer. Now, that is quite strong words. That's quite tough, because the one thing that we've all been complaining about with the pundits is, they've all been sort of like looking at us as if to say, who do you think you are? What do you think you deserve, etc. But Carragher, to his credit, has actually come out and said something a little more than some of the other pundits have done so. So and he went on to say, so if you play at home, you score 4 goals, winning that way when we played against Brentford, some great goals as well. I think it was a great night all round for West Ham. But more importantly, it was important for David Moyes, because if he is to leave at the end of the season or stays, who knows, you wouldn't want to go out on a bad, negative run. Hopefully for him and West Ham, this is the start of getting back into form. And when they're in the table, it's still a great position. Where they are in the table, 8th, is still a great position for West Ham. And then lastly, he said, but on the back of West Ham moving from Upton Park to the Olympic Stadium, 60,000 fans, we talk about the money that's already been spent, the quality of the players that they've now got. Every set of supporters always wants to feel like the club is looking to push on and move on. So West Ham fans don't want to accept that we're just a top half of the table club, but they haven't just been a top club with David Moyes. They've been in Europe. And he's right in that as well. I thought it was balanced. I thought it was really reasonable. I thought it was quite a sensible discussion about the situation that we find ourselves in. He's more or less acknowledged that it's because of David Moyes that we've gotten to the situation that we're in, that we're always now striving to look at being a top half of the table team, pushing on even more and getting into Europe. But he also acknowledges that perhaps David Moyes has got a limitation as to how far he can take the type of football that he adopts in order to get us further. Now, it could be that David Moyes stays on the front foot as he did against Brentford on Monday night? I'd like to think so. But I guess a lot of us have that nagging doubt in our minds that David Moyes is likely to revert to type sooner rather than later.